And that's right. God, if you listening, help. Look, he's even wearing Steelers colors.
Yeah.
Sir Smoke a Lot. That's right. It is the Audible. It is our recap for the wild card weekend. And oh, what a wild weekend it was. First and foremost, Bloom, before we jump into the games, I really enjoyed the triple headers.
Yeah.
I did. Saturday more than Sunday. Sunday wasn't good football. The Nickelodeon broadcast was interesting. We'll get to all that. But like, I originally fought this format. I didn't like the expanded playoffs. And then after basically one day, I was like, I was totally wrong.
It was quite the feast. It was gorging ourselves on football, basically. And what was good about it is we could give our full attention. It was like a typical football Sunday, but we could give our full attention to every game and every team and every play. Right. And it was a good picture of where these teams are at this point in their arc of the story of the franchise, and lots of players continue to make their indelible mark. But like wild card weekend usually is, Cease, it was just an appetizer, as now we're narrowing down the field and the stories are getting better and better.
Okay, it's the playoffs. To celebrate, all new players can play free for the $1 million top prize with your first deposit, thanks to our partnership with Draftkings. Create your Draftkings DFS account and make a deposit. Draftkings will credit your account with a free contest entry. Draft your lineup and compete for millions in prizes. Just go to dkng.co/FBGMillie to play. That's dkng.co/FBGMillie, MILLY. Act quickly. This offer ends after the playoffs. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. And just in case you wanted to know, that hot link is in the description of this video. So again, dkng.co/FBGMILLY to play. And to play like we saw from the Bills and the Colts, 27-24, the final score, Bloom. And we preview the games in just one fell swoop. Let's recap the game in one fell swoop there as well, Bloom, because you saw Jonathan Taylor seemed nigh unstoppable at times. And in this game where the Colts were right there with them, you felt like, okay, they could keep going. Now it's 14-10 at the half. You can still run the football. Then you had those more points scored, 14-point fourth quarter swarm from the Indianapolis Colts, largely thanks to guys like Michael Pittman making big plays, the rookie tying a bow on his season in a nice way. T.Y. Hilton didn't do a whole lot. So mainly it was Jonathan Taylor's kind of the young guys that you get excited about, Jack Doyle getting involved there or whatever. And then, of course, on the Bills side, I don't know why they just don't like Devin Singletary or don't want to use Devin Singletary. It was mostly like Zach Moss with negative 1 yard runs, and then he gets hurt. So in comes Singletary, and they don't really run the ball. Allen leads him in rushing. Allen leads him in passing, of course, and then distributing it to Stephon Diggs. I can't believe Cole Beasley played, Bloom. He did play. We previewed it so long ago, Bloom, where he wasn't going to play. Well, he did in this one. So Bills Colts, best game of the weekend?
Kind of. I mean, it certainly had lots of twists. On the Colts side, so many thoughts here. Look, when it comes right down to it, if the recap of this game is as such, the Bills made the most of their opportunities. The Colts made the least of their opportunities. The Colts were the better team. Colts had a better game plan. Most of the plays, they had better execution. They had the effort they needed to win this game. Phillip Rivers was excellent. That he was making the throws with the exception of two misses, the miss on the touchdown that would have been to Michael Pittman, and the miss behind in the red zone that forced them to go for it, or a field goal. My brain's getting foggy. But look, Rivers is the reason they were in the game. Rivers is not the reason they lost the game. But there was also Jonathan Taylor with a couple of key drops, drive-killing drops. There was also a Kemoko Toure. And maybe if there was a turning point in this game, it was Kemoko Toure with an offsides that was the classic, like, we're just going to see if you jump offside, and he did. And I don't think he played again after that. These mistakes, if you want to beat a team like Buffalo, you have to have a mistake-free game. It was not a mistake-free game. But as you said, lots of things to look forward to with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, the pair of second-round picks, and DeForest Buckner. And how about that? How about that draft haul for this team, for Chris Ballard. DeForest Buckner with your first-round pick, and then because they traded down and let Washington get Montez Sweat, they were able to get Pittman and Taylor. So looking good to the future. And I don't know if we're going to see Phillip Rivers again, but I'll say this, Cease. Watching him in his post-game presser, this is heart, man. Real heart. Real naked emotion. And full investment. You feel it. 100% investment. You almost get a little emotional when you go back and watch Rivers say, I really thought it was our year, but I think every year's our year. But I believe him. I believe him. That's what a team needs. And they had that belief. And as far as defense, they got some help at first. The Bills were relying on the running game early, which is just not your identity. It's not your team. Josh Allen doing more running in the second half. I don't like seeing him take all that punishment. I get it that he can run, but I don't want to use him as like your front forward running game. Moss, I think, has a high ankle sprain. We may see a little more TJ Yeldon. Antonio Williams looked good in week 17.
Why don't they like Devin Singletary? He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year.
I don't know. And Singletary had a nice run, getting through contact. So look, the Colts were controlling this game early, and the Bills just kept hanging around because the Colts weren't putting them away. And then the Bills took control of the game. And then the Bills had another case of what happened to them against the Texans in the playoffs last year. We're up 2 scores, so we won. And then the Colts had many chances to win this game, even after the Bills took control of the game. But the good news for the Bills is they looked like a really good team, at least especially on offense. I mean, Josh Allen was fantastic. Stephon Diggs was fantastic. Gabriel Davis made some terrific plays. When the things weren't working for Josh Allen, he was extending the play and making these amazing low percentage sideline throws downfield like 25 or 30 yards, and it woke the offense up. Diggs was fantastic. Again, the winningest trade of NFL history, Diggs for Justin Jefferson. Cole Beasley, and he's that calming factor in the offense because he's always open and he always makes the catch. Definitely not 100%. And you saw the Bills in a game, so, they could have lost this game in a lot of ways. They were probably not the better team on the field, but they had the best player on the field, Josh Allen.
And by the way, those sideline throws, Gabriel Davis almost single-handedly put this team over the top, where he's like, just throw me the ball. I'm going to make these amazing catches, slow it down, 2 feet down, and here we go. And Josh Allen, please stay healthy. Chat room is wondering, Brandon, what's up, Brandon? More likely to take a snap in 2021, Rivers or Roethlisberger?
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but Rivers sounded like a guy who's really pondering whether he's done.
And didn't you see you want to see more Phillip Rivers?
You do at this point. Roethlisberger, interestingly, sounded like a player who wants to come back and just wants permission to come back from the team. And the Steelers are structured so that they can make one more run with him, and then 2022 is really when there's hell to pay. Salary cap hell, if you will. So we'll see. If I had to put a chip, I'd put it on Roethlisberger.
Okay. Rams and Seahawks up next, 30-20 the final score. Oh, Russell Wilson, you let me down. And John Wolford starts this game, takes on this big hit. It turned out to be a stinger balloon, but anytime that you're on the cart and they're messing with your neck and all that stuff, and hospital trips or whatever, I'm like, no, bad. And Wolford was out there and he provides that rushing ability, and you thought, okay, here we go. And then, well, here comes Jared Goff. You're thinking, disaster, right? With that thumb, and he's not going to be all right. Well, he's 9 of 19, but he did throw a touchdown pass. And he did lead this team to the win. Having Cooper Kupp out there for both Wolford and Goff kind of settled things down. Robert Woods with the 1 touchdown. Cam Akers with that heavy workload, 28 for 131 and a touch. And that's how they get the victory, control the clock. And the Seahawks offense just couldn't do much of anything to get going. You had DK Metcalf and some player props. Then you were happy about that with his couple of touchdowns. Chris Carson leading the way on the ground, but Russell Wilson, 11 of 27. We don't say that a whole lot about Russell Wilson, 11 of 27. So Seattle is done. The Rams move on. And, well, my impressions were this game, it was more interesting. It was a little bit boring, and it was boring because of Seattle.
Right. Seattle side thoughts. And Cecil, we're going to talk about this a little bit with Pittsburgh too. I get it. You can do worse. You can do worse at head coach than Pete Carroll. You can do worse at head coach than Mike Tomlin. All right. There's something to be said for leaders. There's something to be said for leaders of men, for personalities that can get everybody pulling in the same direction and have full buy-in. And certainly Pete Carroll's that guy. He does it with love. But don't you get a little feeling, a little twinge that this blueprint of this Seahawks team maybe has run its course? I mean, I know that Russell Wilson's going to be part of that blueprint. And they got what they wanted, right? I mean, they picked up Carlos Dunlap. They traded 2 first. This was a year where they traded 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams. And Sean McVay grew up in this game. Sean McVay grew up this year. And I'm going to do some personal eating of my words a couple of times during this show, all right? One of them was, at the end of the year last year, McVay, where his offense was kind of short-circuiting, said, I'm going to lean in on defense, and I'm going to get someone who can do multiple looks. I'm going to get somebody that is innovative, who has a similar mindset to me on defense, Brandon Staley. And now he could get his first head coach job. Like, he was a linebacker coach, 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. You know, even faster ascent than Arthur Smith, the belle of the ball. So, and then on the Seattle side, you know, what you saw was just the defense. This is no longer the Legion of Boom. It's the Legion of Thud. Like Thud for their season. You know? They can't match the Rams' intensity getting back Andrew Whitworth, big for the running game. And then you see Walford, who I think was the right choice, getting hurt. Jared Goff, when he first comes out, you can tell first few throws look like he didn't quite know what the ball was going to do. You know?
So the ball... His thumb.
Yeah, and the ball would come out a way I've never seen the ball come out of a quarterback's hand in an NFL game before. He started out 0 for 4, but he calmed down and he started making those plays. And again, the Seattle defense just started wilting. The Seattle defense didn't put any stamp on this game, and the Rams offense did. And it is that more conservative Rams offense. It's going to do a lot more low air yards, high percentage throws, and leaning on the running game, which Cam Akers was ready for this game. Cam Akers did not look like a rookie. Cam Akers brought full intensity in this one. And what you saw here, and interestingly, Cecil, when you lose, we're going to dissect everything you did, right? Like the Colts. Oh, you took the field goal early, and then you went for it on 4th and instead of taking the field goal and this and that, right? When you win, we're not going to dissect it. But what was the thought process here for McVay? That he started Walford over Goff and didn't have Blake Bortles active. Either he really felt like Walford gave him a better chance to win even though Goff could play, or perhaps he was unsure that Goff could play effectively and just didn't have a choice. But in that case, why wouldn't you have 3 quarterbacks active? You know, the Rams march on to Green Bay. By the way, the Bills are going to get Baltimore. We'll talk, spoiler alert. The Rams march on to Green Bay with this defense. Aaron Donald got hurt in this game. He's going to be okay. Cooper Kupp got hurt in this game. We'll see. Bursitis, which is more of a pain issue. And we'll see. But Sean McVay leaning in on defense and pulling back on offense, it was right. It was the right approach. This team is more dangerous in the playoffs than the team last year. And you wonder, Cease, if this isn't taking a page out of Bill Belichick's book. Because Belichick is absolutely if you can't beat him, join him coach, right? And Staley is, sucking at the nipple of Vic Fangio and getting weaned from Vic Fangio, who owned Sean McVay even during the season that they barnstormed through the league. Fangio's Bears own them. So you wonder if that isn't something to keep in mind going forward as teams make adjustments with position coaches and coordinators, that find the guy who could beat you. Find the guy who could do something that you couldn't solve. Bring him in, have the number 1 defense, take down Seattle, and now you're playing with house money. And I think that this is a matchup, all things considered, that, the Packers number 1 seed, your reward is Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. That's not much of a reward.
Not at all. By the way, that's the last time Fangio had a good defense.
Yeah.
It's a Broncos show.
It's always a Broncos show.
Always, always, always. 31-23, the final score, Tampa Bay over Washington, and Tommy Brady, almost 400 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns on the day. Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown getting that first one, and, Mike Evans going 6 for 119 with a hyperextended knee. And then we had, what was the Ronald Jones, like the warm-up? It was like after inactives, but before the start of the game. So like a warm-up with Ronald Jones, and then they shut him down, and here comes Fournette with almost 100 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. Uncertainty about Rojo going into next week's game, Bloom. We'll talk about that. Taylor Heineke made himself a lot of money. proving that, one, I think Washington should keep him, dude.
Right.
Because he knows Ron Rivera's system, all those sorts of things. But when you can prove that you can be steady and give your team a chance, I mean, this is Tampa, Washington. No one was thinking Washington could even be close. And Taylor Heineke out there running the ball, getting that rushing touchdown, stretching out for the pylon, throwing a rock, 300-yard passing day. Old Dominion quarterback from the Shrine game. There's a bong rip for Jason out there. But, like, you had a guy that was out of the league that people had forgotten about that comes back. And at Old Dominion, he was a gunslinger. That's all he did. That's all he wanted to do. So you see that coming through with Washington. Antonio Gibson banged up. I look forward to seeing Gibson healthy next year. Terry McLaurin, look forward to seeing him healthy and continued on. Logan Thomas doing here. Both of your Simses did some things in this game. So I like the fight that Washington put up. Tampa, though, seems like they're on a mission, Bloom.
Yeah, they just had him outgunned. And one of the things I meant to do a little more formally was a bit of a post-mortem and a where do we go from here. And we kind of did that with the Colts. We're like, hey, everything's fine with the Colts. Everything's on track with the Colts.
Yeah.
It's just the Rivers decision. That's basically what we're looking at. The Seahawks kind of looking ahead, like, has this run its course. Russell Wilson, this offense, this defense, like, where's the identity for this team? For Washington, it's more hopeful, even though they were the team that only made the playoffs because they were in a division with 3 other bad teams. And the good news here for them is you see the future. Chase, and look, if we're going to hand out MVPs in this game, Donovan Smith, I mean, the Tampa offensive line made the Washington Montez Sweat and Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan pass rush a non-factor. That, I think, was the difference in the game, because you allow Brady to operate more comfortably, and then you see, and that's when the breakdowns in coverage happen. Because, yes, it's Washington. There are going to be breakdowns in coverage. You mask that by not giving the quarterback time and peace of mind to find those. And Brady was able to, and it set out a game script where Tampa was able to play with the lead. But, yeah, Taylor Heineke, did you see America kind of become Taylor Heineke fans? And we're not necessarily, it's not that we're anti-Tom Brady. It's just like we've seen a lot of Tom Brady. So Heineke, just showing what you like about Heineke is he's playing at the limit of his abilities, and he's not afraid of making mistakes, or he's not afraid of what might go wrong if he tries to drop that throw in or scrambles and extends for the pylon and things like that. And he kept it a game, and Washington got enough stops. Tampa Bay may be going back to the drawing board in this game. A lot of sputtering out in the red zone, right? I mean, if Antonio Brown is left alone by a busted coverage, easy touchdown, But when they got down in the red zone, they were settling for field goals, which probably isn't going to work against the Saints, spoiler alert. So for Washington, Ron Rivera got this team going in the right direction. See, we talked about it. Would Ron Rivera have an underdog game plan? Well, Taylor Heineke just stepped in and did it. And maybe give a little credit to Scott Turner. We saw Cam Sims have a really good game, looking forward to the future as an outside receiver here. Remember, they lost Kelvin Harmon before the season even began. We also saw some plays, Logan Thomas growing up in this game. So all kinds of things pointing to a much better Washington team than the one we saw this year. But as you said, Cease, coming out of this game, the big question is Taylor Heineke, right? Because it wasn't even like a date. Steven Montez, did he get in the game for a couple of plays? I looked like he was going to, right?
He was warming up, and then he came back out. Yeah.
So it wasn't even a date, Cease. It was kind of like you met someone out at a bar, and by the end of the night, Washington fans are saying, we don't need to marry him, okay? Like, maybe we'll go on like a weekend getaway and see how much we really like him. So you're right, Washington should keep him, but absolutely, there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking at Taylor Heineke now. And it's another reminder that just because a guy's on the street doesn't mean he can't play. It doesn't mean that they're players. There's a lot to be, especially at the quarterback position. The NFL is still, I think they've mastered, for the most part, knowing who to take in the first round, like who has enough potential to take in the first round. But it's that second tier of guys that fill in the cracks because there's not 32 starting quality quarterbacks that the NFL still is missing on guys. And Heineke is the latest one, and I think he's one of the more memorable figures from this weekend for very good reasons. And how dare we say it? Like, look, Cease, what a year for Washington, the football team, right? Mm-hmm. There's all the stuff that the NFL still hasn't really addressed about their culture, like the business culture, not just team culture. There's the dropping of the name. 2020's had a lot of stuff happen.
Yes, it has.
2021, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things Ron Rivera gets cancer. But all of these things come out with the arrow pointing up. For Tampa, the clock is ticking. Third time they'll face the Saints. I think the stat is 14. Well, I guess the Browns changed this. 14 out of 22 times when a team has swept the regular season and they face them in the playoffs, they win. So odds a little bit on the Saints' side there, though, as the Bucs win, but not quite as comfortably. I think all three underdogs were the winning bets as far as the spread on Super Saturday.
Super Saturday leads into boring Sunday, but Ravens-Titans was the best game to kick things off, and the Ravens getting that win 20-13 is the final score. Lamar Jackson, that's just Lamar Jackson. What was that, Bloom, like a 3rd and 8?
Oh, the 50-yard touchdown
45? Run? Yeah, they had the 48-yard touchdown run, like amazing. You can't defense that play. One thing that we've talked about, Bloom, maybe not enough, right? Mm-hmm. So now we can. But just kind of the recent play of Hollywood Brown. Yeah. The recent emergence, how he's surging and he's having a great lead up to the postseason, and then a 100-yard game in this contest. Derrick Henry couldn't get much going on the other side. Corey Davis, a couple drops, couldn't get much going there. And then A.J. Brown with his 83 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill doing their best, but if you shut down Derrick Henry, you do effectively shut down the Titans, and that's what the Ravens made their emphasis. And that's why, along with Lamar Jackson, they get this win.
I feel like the Titans let up a little bit in this game. I mean, they came out, they really controlled it, 10-0. Lamar Jackson had a terrible interception. An interception that said, because look, the narrative coming into this game was Lamar Jackson hasn't won anything, right?
And he looked like he's pressed in the playoffs before.
Yeah, and even, going back to Louisville, what I'm saying is that Lamar Jackson didn't have that big signature win for folks to say he can elevate his team on a big stage. And he throws the interception early. A poor interception. It was Miles Boykin. It should have been to the sidelines. It was to the inside. It was an easy interception for Malcolm Butler. At that point, it would have been very easy for Lamar Jackson to go down the spiral he had last year, sit by himself on the bench, the team being like, oh, we work all this, and Jackson's going to start making plays like this. And it didn't happen. On the Baltimore side, you mentioned Marquise Brown, and one thing folks need to remember about Marquise Brown, yes, he's fast and quick. He's precise, too. He's a technician, but you saw all of those things that he brought to bear. His arrows pointing up, absolutely. The running game, it was Lamar Jackson, really, because the Titans' defense was a weak spot for the Titans, but they didn't have any kind of catastrophic collapse in this one. It took some pretty significant plays by Brown, and especially Jackson as a runner, for the Ravens to put up the points they needed. Also a rare miss from Justin Tucker. But on the Titans side, you did see A.J. Brown early. So early on, you thought, okay, A.J. Brown's putting his stamp on the game. Now the Ravens, who remember, they go out. What did we see last year? They get stomped in the running game. They go out and get Calais Campbell right away. They bring in Derek Wolfe. Wolfe had a nice sack in this game. Hodor, right? They bring in, and they have Brandon Williams, who they did not have for the first matchup this year. And I have to say, we simplify these things a lot, Cease, but it is smart to go in and say, we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us. If we lose, we lose. But it's not going to be because of Derrick Henry, and they followed through on that. And because I don't understand what happened with the Titans didn't keep going to Derrick Henry. He only got to 18 carries, and it was a one-score game the whole way. I don't know if I totally understand what happened there. But this is one of two egregious, see, in the years and years that we've been watching football, especially in the year 2021, when coaches are supposed to be more enlightened about fourth downs and 2-point conversions and things like that. Mike Vrabel, 4th and 2, you're down 4 points, and you're at the opponent 40-yard line, and you punt. And the thing is, it gets worse when they ask them. It gets worse when they ask the coach, why did you do it? Vrabel says, well, the defense was playing well, field position. If the defense is playing well, then you don't care if you don't make it on 4th down. Because the defense can erase the cost of that. Come on. You denied your team a real chance to win this game with that decision. It was terrible. Really. See, you know how they have those, remember we got to hear that I won't name him because there was a player that told us what they really teach the players about the rookie symposium.
Yes.
And for those of you that understand what I'm saying, like what I'm saying. They need a 4th down symposium for head coaches. Right? It was just, as a fan of the game, that was the worst. The surrender index is what they call it on Twitter. And Ben Baldwin does a terrific bot, a 4th down bot. But they said it was something like the 100th percentile worst surrender punt in like the 10 years they've been tracking it. You just can't do that, Mike Vrabel. I know that you're willing to give up parts of your anatomy for a Super Bowl. How about your brain, man? You need to let this offense try to win the game for you. But yeah, Ryan Tannehill, the play action passing, a lot of the stuff that was working wasn't working. And then, of course, you had the Titans, and you had them coming up like Marlon Humphrey gets the forearm push off. Then refs are never going to call the forearm push off. Does he get frustrated? No, he makes plays. And you really did see a lot of these these Ravens players, remember this. A lot of these Ravens players, outside of the punter and the kicker and a handful of other guys, had never won a playoff game. You think of the Ravens as a winning team. They had never won a playoff game. Yep. Unless they were with the team like 6 years ago. So does this free them up, Cease? Do they exhale? What a game. Ravens, Bills coming up next week. For the Titans, probably losing Arthur Smith. Does that maybe expose a little bit of how the play calling was elevating this team? Who do they bring in to replace him? The defense, lots and lots of issues. It's not coming together. We know that the AFC South has been kind of like a washing machine, one of the divisions that churns. Is that it? Was it a short window for this Titans team? I don't know, but I do think that it's sad that it had to end on a coach unforced error, an own goal, if you will, on that terrible, but not the only terrible punt call on this Sunday.
No, not the only terrible punt call on this Sunday. And, a terrible game up next. Bears and Saints, 21-9, the final score. And, do we have to talk about Mitchell Trubisky? I suppose. And then, we're recording this. What is today, Bloom? Monday. Yeah. Is Matt Nagy still safe? Has anything come out? Has anything been revealed or released about the Bears potentially making changes? Because the Saints didn't really have to do much to beat this team. Now, they did it with Michael Thomas. Great to see his return to the end zone. Did it with Alvin Kamara. Great to see his return out there as well. The virtual practice. One thing we learned, Bloom, spoiler alert for the Browns game coming up. Practice doesn't really matter that much. So Bears, Saints, and the Nickelodeon thing, the NFL rarely tries something new. And Nate Burleson is one of the, most underrated analysts out there. Really entertaining, really informative, very charismatic. There's so many good things. And just a good guy. I don't know him, but I know enough people that do, Bloom. Just a really good, down-to-earth dude. So you kind of love seeing that. It's geared for a younger audience, and Alvin and the Chipmunks are on with Alvin Kamara. Right. Sliming in the end zone, and Slime and Sean Payton. He got some slime on those 11s. I think he had some low top 11s on, Bloom. I was like, don't. I know Sean Payton's rich enough to, buy all that or what. It's probably given to him anyway. But I was like, watch out for those 11s, pal. Anyway, let's talk about this game that was this was your go to Costco game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where you'd be like, what do we need to do today? Oh, go to Costco? Yeah, I'll do it during Bears and Saints.
Yeah, by the way, just tying up a few little loose ends on the Titans. Johnny Smith, a free agent. Corey Davis, a free agent who had a rough go in his last game of the season. And, we'll see. A lot of decisions coming up for the Titans. This game was weird.
Very weird.
I don't know if it was because of Nickelodeon and something about them broadcasting it under their masthead that changed the vibe of the game. It felt like a preseason game, honestly. The other thing that I can say is maybe it's just Mitchell Trubisky. The idea that Mitchell Trubisky can win a playoff game is so laughable that nobody took this game seriously. How perfect was this, Cease? Because it was Nickelodeon, and I did watch the Nickelodeon feed, and it was delightful. I'll talk a little more about that. Nickelodeon didn't have the MVP. They had the NVP, voted on by the viewers, and the viewers gave it to Mitchell Trubisky. And it's perfect because it's like, what is an MVP award? How do you win an MVP? Well, all you need to know is Mitchell Trubisky won the first one.
Right.
And now the die has been cast. What did you see in this game? Well, the Bears pulled out a trick play that worked, and Javon Wims dropped the ball after making a really tough catch on the same drive. And that was it, right? Didn't you feel in that moment, well, the Bears aren't going to win this game?
Yep. They tried.
Unless they're... Go ahead.
They tried. That's it.
Right. I mean, that was it. There was a point... Cease, was there a point, am I remembering this correctly, that they ran 13 straight times in the first half, the Bears did?
I think so.
Like how much more blatantly can you show that you don't trust your quarterback? How is that? How is that possible in the year 2021 that a team can run 13 straight times when you don't have Derrick Henry or someone like that? So the Bears offense just wasn't credible. And again, like comedy, this was like a silly game. Apparently the Bears had a very specific meeting about C.D. Deuce, Chauncey Gardner being there. If you haven't seen it, great film. Peter Sellers, Deodato, and his version of also Sprox Zarathustra is like one of the most indelible music scene moments in film history. They said, this guy's going to bait you. Don't take the bait. Anthony Miller, last game as a Bear. Actually, I think Anthony Miller can be a lot better somewhere else. I still am an Anthony Miller fan. He takes the bait. Throws a punch and gets thrown out of the game. I mean, there's nothing good to say about the Bears here. The defense, I want to say the defense had a valiant or gutsy defense, but the Saints were just kind of going through the motions, you know? And it felt like they knew that just driving slow, like in the right lane, was going to get them to their destination in this one. What can we even say good? I mean, Michael Thomas had a few plays to show you he's still Michael Thomas coming off of IR. Alvin Kamara still got his burst. Tavius Murray got a little banged up. We'll watch that. Jared Cook did his typical make an amazing play, not make an easy play. Taysom Hill showing his lack of pocket presence. Lots of stuff circling about before the game that is Breeze. This is it. His last ride. He's going to retire after this playoff season. So no Trey Hendrickson in this one for the Saints, by the way. They really need to get him back for the Bucs game. But it was all just a precursor. So if you like 7 playoff teams, you point to the Colts. That was a deserving playoff team. If you don't like 7 playoff teams, you look at the Bears. Did we really need to see the Bears in the playoffs? Well, what we did get to see was the Nickelodeon feed. And yes, you're right. This was very un-NFL. Very, very
now, why did you choose to watch that? Was it because of Noah? Was it because of or did you just I don't want to watch Saints Bears?
I want to see what they had in store.
I just checked in on it and just watched people's reaction to it. But you watched it, huh?
Yeah, and I just wanted to see what they did, and it was fun. Now, here's one of the weird things about it, though, and it kind of matched the game, right? Because it was fun. Because football, John Facenda, dun, 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 the autumn winds a raider. Football's very serious and epic and operatic. On a Nickelodeon, it was entertainment. Hey, they're about to kick a field goal. Oh, the goalpost just turned into SpongeBob. But here's the thing. There are lots and lots of reports of kids watching their first football game. Lots of reports of that. It worked. This is what... Cease, how much would a company pay for a young person to watch the first of some thing they want to turn into a lifelong obsession? $1,000 a head? Right?
Yeah.
$5,000 a head to have that opportunity to sit them down in front of the game screen as a 5-6-year-old and say, this is football. And it was fun, but it was also very informative. So here's some interesting things they did. They had a young female star from Nickelodeon who clearly didn't watch football, when the first punch, she was like, whoa, he kicked that really far, look how high it went. But it was excellent because it was a surrogate for people who don't watch football, watching their first game. And they were explaining everything. And sometimes using it to plug their shows, Young Sheldon or whatever. But they actually were explaining things. Love My Life, Kate, we've watched hundreds of games together, and she's like, this is good. I actually have learned a thing or two, because football isn't necessarily accessible. It's you're already all the way in the deep end. there were
It's like
things
trying
like
to jump into the Marvel movies at Infinity War, right?
Right.
You're like, what the hell is going on? I have no
Right.
idea. So it makes a lot of sense. In the NFL, we've often said Bloom succeeds in spite of themselves.
Right.
Well, this time they succeeded by plan, by design. And you want to baseball. Hey, baseball. Take note, you old stuffy
Right.
sport.
Right, exactly. And some of the things he's like favorite ice cream flavor, favorite emoji, like players talking about when they were kids, what Nickelodeon, the role that Nickelodeon played in their life. There was pictures of the players as kids. What's more humanizing than that, right? We see like Fox with their drawings of the players, which sometimes look like the players and sometimes don't. A picture of them as a kid, and see what was beautiful is that as they were showing pictures of like Cam Jordan and Taysom Hill and Drew Brees, etc., when they were kids, it's saying they're like you. Like, you're a kid too. You looked like this when you were a kid. They grew up to be football superstars. So it was great. It was great to see football seats were. I don't want to do like a sorry Joe. There's like a crude way I could say like what football is for a lot of us. Like it's just like a closed group, a circle shaped group, if you will.
Don't be a jerk, Bloom.
It's let's all sit down together and enjoy this, and it was fun, and it made it so that the game didn't seem that important, which for a playoff game was weird. Like just it felt like a preseason game, but I thought it was a really interesting watershed moment. And then Sean Payton, who had never heard of being slimed, said in the press conference before the game, like the day before, that he officially volunteered to be slimed if the team won. And as you said, he did it. He did it. So cheers to Sean Payton for getting in the spirit of this and to keep this sport vibrant and healthy, which we depend on in the future because we're old. I think it's a fantastic thing. I look forward to more experiments like this and more treating football as a shapeless, formless kind of entertainment that can be packaged in a way depending on people's interest level and what they're looking for in the game. Saints are looking for the Bucs round 3. Bears probably not going to fire Nagy. Probably going to stick with Trubisky. I don't know. They were saying during the game, like, well, if you don't have anyone better, you got to stick with him. Well, they don't have anyone better, but really? They have to stick with him? Bears fans, I'm sorry.
Bloom, lots to say there. Lots to say.
I have a lot more to say, but sorry if I went on for too long. But it was interesting. The point is it was interesting. It was thought-provoking. Yes. It was different.
It was different and thought-provoking and kind of dropping the, shield or whatever, literally of the shield, where it's like football, you have to have this access. You must know on this third down situation that blah, 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 blah. It's like football should just be fun. And we often talk, usually Bloom off air, but if we talk about like representation and why that matters in movie franchises or comic books or whatever, it's like, well, seeing yourself in something that you realize is fun or that you would like to do makes people more interested in it.
Yeah.
So of course it makes sense for the pictures of them as kids, for kids to be like, I want to be that guy. It's literal. Like we always want to be grown-ups, right? When we're kids, when I grow up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to be a kid.
Yeah.
So do we have to talk about the Steelers?
Yes. Get it out. See, this is where like you have your Broncos rants, which are rooted in a different place. It's time for a Steelers rant.
Okay. They're just done. Like, I'm done with Tomlin. I'm done with the excuses. I'm done with playing down to the competition. By the way, the competition was way better than you. And I feel bad, Bloom, because especially for you and I, we should be going out of our way to fall all over ourselves about the Browns. Like, to praise the Browns. Like, I've commented on this. My man James Palmer from NFL Network, he was just giving me crap about it. I'm like, no, man, I'm super happy for the Browns. But the Steelers are so done. And it was one of those things like where it's obvious to everyone else. And then Steelers fans would be like, undefeated. And, like, anything that I did when they were undefeated, Bloom, like, was just being kitschy. Because I knew they were fraudulent. I even said it on the air, like, the Steelers are fraudulent. They may not have a loss, but they're a fraudulent team. And they were exposed. They were exposed by Washington, Bloom.
Yep.
So what does that say? Oh, so many ways we could go with that one. But so the Steelers, I don't want to see Ben anymore. Sorry, not this version of Ben. I don't want to see Juju. I don't care about dancing and all that kind of stuff, but when you're down in a playoff game, don't TikTok while you line up. Like, just, dude, come on. Like, I love Juju's energy. I love his spirit as a person, right? We need more of that, right? The positive energy, the positive vibes. Those are all good. Those are good things. Again, though, football is very, very serious business. And if you're out there TikToking, and then I love that the Browns, like every single Brown shook their ass yesterday.
Yeah.
Good. Making fun of him. What? Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use that song as a bumper for this show. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. But this version of the Steelers, we're probably going to be forced to see again. And, well, Bloom, I guess we'll have more moments like this.
Yeah, we'll know how the story's going to end. So you're right, Cease. Let's praise the Browns first, okay? Because really, we don't need to make this about the Steelers, but we will. It's that scene in A Christmas Story, right? Like, you finally get the bully. You finally get on top of the bully, right? This is for everything you've ever done. Oh, man. Right?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yep.
And sure enough, it will go down as one of the most epic humiliations in NFL playoff history. As it should. And since you covered that Broncos team against Seattle and Snap and all that, or am I remembering it was Carolina and Denver? I don't remember. There was
it was the Seattle one. It was Super Bowl 48.
Yeah. An omen, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That first snap, Marquise Pouncey over Roethlisberger's head. But it didn't stop there.
No.
No. Okay. Roethlisberger threw 4 interceptions. Had nothing to do with Juju. The defense couldn't tackle or cover. Had nothing to do with Juju. Pouncey's snap had nothing to do with Juju. I get it. More motivation. And there is something to be said. Joe Thomas, who I trust, Thomas and Andrew Hawk, would love him, saying that this, and I get this part of it, right? That when all the COVID stuff went down earlier in the week, that the Browns were deflated. And then Juju's thing, the Browns are the Browns and all that,
right,
gave them a reason to get emotionally bought back in. But it doesn't matter. None of that was the difference in the game. The difference in the game was that the Steelers sucked. The Steelers were terrible.
Yes.
They were terrible. And the only reason the Steelers had a chance to win the game or get back in the game was because of halftime. Because it gave the Browns a chance to realize what was going on. That they were up 35-7 at the halftime of a game against the Steelers, who evicted them.
They're pulling Ralphie off the bully, right?
Right. So, and sure enough, the Steelers actually did have a chance to win this game. So, when you're on the Steelers side, you're right. And the postmortem on the Steelers is they give it one more ride. Because the reality is, I think there's 6 players. I was reading Mark Kabley this morning. 6 players that are meaningful, that are under contract past 2021. So, no matter what, 2022, the rebuild is here. And as much as I love Mike Tomlin, he's a leader of men. He's a cool dude. He gets everybody pulling in the same direction. He's a good keeper of the Steelers' way, whatever that is. I don't know that he's the one I want overseeing a rebuild, we're going to make a team in an image. Randy Finkner's got to go. Keith Butler's got to go. Keith Butler blitzing, and the Browns, without like their offensive staff, knew that quick passing. Why is it so easy? See, why is it always so easy to outcoach the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Because their coaches aren't good.
Because they're not. They're not good coaches. They're not good game day coaches. They're good coaches of creating a program and getting everyone to buy in, having an identity.
Right.
They're not good game day coaches. And look, this is what it comes down to. The last 2 times we've seen the Steelers in the playoffs, which are the most important games of the year, they've played their worst half of football of the entire season in the first half. That's on Mike Tomlin. That's on the head coach. Period. This is not pointing in the right direction for the Steelers. And yes, and the thing is, you pass on you pass on Lamar Jackson for Terrell Edmonds. My poor 84-year-old father, I talked to him after the game, like we do. My poor 84-year-old father, Sigmund L. Bloom. You know what he said, Cease? Don't take a drink or anything when I tell you this. He said, at least you will live long enough to maybe see them be good again.
Wow.
So, Love you, Dad. But he's been saying for 3 or 4 years, when are they going to have a plan for life after Ben? Mm-hmm. Mason Rudolph's not a plan. Joshua Dobbs is not a plan. That's a prayer. When are they going to have a plan? And if the reason they didn't take Lamar Jackson over Terrell Edmonds is because Ben wouldn't have that, that's not a good reason. Who cares? And here's the second time on the show where I'm going to eat crow and say I was wrong. I'm going to eat my words, Cease. Green Bay taking Jordan Love. How old is Aaron Rodgers? Like 36?
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, after all the, sorry, Joe, bitching and moaning and everything I did about that, it was the right move. Because you don't wait until your quarterback is like 1 foot over the ledge to try to do something. You plan ahead. And the Packers are going to bear the fruit of, thankfully, Aaron Rodgers being like a healthy, spiritual, mental, emotional person to say, like, that's okay. I just have to take it on me to be as good as I can possibly be now. And here we are. Whether Jordan Love, so I'm totally eating all my words. Whatever happens with Jordan Love, Green Bay actually did do the foresight to say, okay, if we identify a franchise quarterback prospect, we don't need to wait until our quarterback is crumbling before our very eyes to take that guy. You need to have a plan. There's no plan. But Cease, this is all the lead up to one of the most disgusting moments as a fan of a team that I've ever had to live through. How could Mike Tomlin punt on 4th and 1 at midfield down 12 points in the fourth quarter? How does that happen in an NFL game? It made me momentarily regret ever caring about whether the Steelers won. Why am I going to invest my emotion in this when the coach is that disconnected? I'm reminded of, you've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox? Like one of the last good Wes Anderson movies. Mm-hmm. Remember the mole when his eyes would go like...
Well, I saw that movie because of you, because you loved it so much.
I think it was Jim Caldwell, who may be back in a head coaching job soon, who was originally, they did the meme of Caldwell and the mole being like mesmerized, like, I don't know what to do. Like, is that what happened to Mike Tomlin in that moment? How is that possible? The Steelers, after everything that had happened, had a chance to get back in this game. If they had driven down the field, the Browns had not scored in the second half. Mm-hmm. And they were about to go from 35-7 to 35-30, 35-31 even maybe. It was 1 yard. If you don't trust your offense to make 1 yard, then why do you even show up at the stadium to play the game?
Right.
I was disgusted. I was speechless. I couldn't even say anything. The love of my life, Kate, my wife watching the game with me, she's like, why did he do that? I'm just like, I had no answer. She thought I was like ignoring her or something. I'm like, I can't speak right now. I can't believe that I just saw that. And if you're going to try to draw them offside, you do it with the offense. Who's ever jumped offside against the punt team? What the hell? So look, for the Browns, let's give credit where credit is due. Jarvis Landry, warrior.
Yep.
Nick Chubb, warrior. Kareem Hunt, warrior. Baker Mayfield had a few gutsy plays. On the defensive side, well, who are these guys, right? Sheldrick Redwine. That's like, a made-up name, right?
All right.
I mean, was it Myles Garrett? No. Was it some, a big high, Sione Taki? You know what I mean? It was guys who showed up and played. And we look at the Steelers missing all those tackles, losing guys in coverage. Now, for the Steelers, see, the list is long, right? Who's not going to be back with the Steelers next year? James Conner. Juju Smith-Schuster, Bud Dupree, maybe Cameron Sutton. We'll see. They probably have to cut Joe Hayden if they want to have the money to pay Cameron Sutton. Where does this team go next? Again, they're probably delaying it a year with the Roethlisberger decision. But look, watch the Jags playoff game from 3 years ago. Watch this playoff game. Look at the similarities. It's preparation. It's energy. It's intensity. And most of all, it's so hard for me to forgive Mike Tomlin for taking away a chance because it emboldened the Browns. The Browns offense woke back up after that moment. Yep. It was almost like this moment of like, oh, wow, lucky us. We're going to be okay. Right. Whenever they were starting to feel like the game was slipping away from them. And I have no idea how to digest that, Cecil. I have no idea how to process that.
I have no idea how to think of the Pittsburgh Steelers other than disgust. Yeah. But we're excited to see what else the Browns can do. Again, we're happy for the Browns.
House money.
And you're playing on house money, so go for it. Bloom, how do you want to wrap up this wild card weekend recap?
Oh, wow. I think that the NFL continues to show during a pandemic, during a time of great crisis in our country, why it is the thing most of all that we rally around. I think it's because the players and the staffs and coaches of these teams really completely invest themselves like it is life or death. And in a sense, it is. And it is very cathartic and it is very unifying. And I think that we're fortunate to have this. Knowing that now we get down to the nitty gritty, now we get down to where epic memories are etched with these epic figures. And now we can add some new names, right? Now we can finally start to see what's Josh Allen, the playoff quarterback, going to be like? What's Lamar Jackson, the playoff quarterback, going to be like? What's Aaron Donald really is like the avatar of a team going to be like? Saints, Bucks, Brady. Like every one of these games has stories upon stories upon stories. It's how you know you're getting deep in the playoffs. And no matter who wins the Super Bowl and how it happens, it's going to be meaningful. There's a reason we've been paying such close attention to this for 4 months and give our lives over to football, because it feels like one of the last outposts of the true American dream. If you work hard enough and you're good, you will eventually get your chance and get your rewards. And it feels like one of those last places where anything can happen in a good way. Anything can happen in a way that those things can be overcome. Jared, here's how to tie it up, man. Jared, man. We love you, Jared. Jared, I was able to check in with Jared right when it was 7-0. on a Zoom he had set up. And I think that for long-suffering fans of the Browns, it's daylight's coming. For fans of Miami, maybe Deshaun Watson's going to be your quarterback. Day is coming. For fans of Washington, Heineke and Rivera and everything, the day is coming. It always turns over. The pendulum always eventually swings back. But sometimes the swing is not in your favor. So for us, for Patriots fans, for other fans, Seahawks fans maybe, the pendulum swinging the other direction, but that's okay. Give it time.
Yeah, and Broncos fans, where you have Vic Fangio. The one thing about me is I'm there every day. So you have guys that are going to hire a GM that aren't going to be there in a year. For an owner who's not going to be Brittany Boland. And Brittany Boland, is she going to be our next owner? Not even involved in the GM search. Okay. We need to do a news note show, Bloom.
Yes, let's do that.
Also, you're doing division recaps?
Yes, so I'm lining up an all-star fantasy analyst cast. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening to the show and you happen to be one, maybe you'll get a nudge from me. For the next week or two, we're going to do a little looking back while we can. And again, I'm going to give a credit to Jared. Love you, Jared. He reminded me that when we look back at the season right now, when everything is still fresh, we can get a lot more takeaways than when we look back 4, 5, 6 months from now, and we're looking more at end of season stats, and we're forgetting the journey. So we're going to take that journey one more time.
Oh, and of course, Brandon says, where's scuba? Yes. Snorkel, scuba, submarine. That is coming as well. And Jason, there you go. One thing about the Audible is it's there every day. It'll seem like it as we're there for you. Many thanks you all for watching. Many thanks you all for listening. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Stay tuned and stay frosty.